Hi, I'm Virginia Trammell. I'm a registered dietitian with the Nutrition Specialists of Northeastern Oklahoma. Today we're going to talk about how we can use food to help control blood glucose levels with people with diabetes. So I'm going to start by just giving a general overview of what diabetes is and what's happening in our bodies. So generally when we eat foods that have carbohydrates, that gets broken down into glucose in our bloodstreams. Now the problem is glucose needs insulin to get into our cells to be used as energy. So insulin acts as the key to allow the glucose into the cells. So either with someone with diabetes, it's either we don't have enough keys or it's the wrong key. So we either don't make enough insulin or our cells become insulin resistant. So then what happens is that glucose stays in our bloodstream. And the problem with that is those glucose molecules tend to clump up on red blood cells to make them larger. So when your blood flows through your body and it gets into all the teeny little vessels in your fingers and your toes and your kidneys and your eyes and your nerve endings and things, those vessels eventually start to clog up and eventually they'll start to die off. So then we end up with kidney damage to our kidneys, damage to our extremities, damage to our nerve endings, damage to our eyes. And obviously those are things that we are trying to avoid by controlling blood sugar. So one of the many ways that we can help control our blood sugar is by watching our carbohydrate intake. So technically a serving of carbohydrate is 15 grams of carbs. So when people say that we're carb counting or we get 3 carb servings per meal, that's what they're saying is each carb serving is 15 grams. And that does vary for different foods. For example, 1 carb serving is 1 slice of bread or 8 animal crackers or a cup and a half of strawberries would be a carb serving. When we're counting carbs, that's what we're looking at is a 15-gram carb serving. So that's the first thing that we want to watch when we're trying to use food to help control our blood sugar. The other thing that we want to do is we want to combine foods. So we don't want to just eat carbohydrates on their own, because what's going to happen is our body breaks that down pretty quickly and your blood sugar is going to go right up and then it's going to go right back down like a big scary roller coaster ride. So when we are combining carbohydrates with protein in particular and fiber and also healthy fats, that slows the rise of our blood sugar, so it's more like a kiddie roller coaster ride, and that's what we want. So what happens is when we combine carbohydrates with the protein, the fiber, and the fat, that sort of slows digestion. So it gives our body more time to utilize the glucose that is in the bloodstream so that again, we're not getting that big scary roller coaster ride. So it's very important that when we're preparing a meal, when we're trying to decide what to eat, we want to look at, do we have protein? Do we have fiber, which would be plant-based foods, non-starchy vegetables, fruits, and then any whole grain, whole wheat? And then how many carb servings do we have? And that's the key, is to combine those things together. So if we're going to have, for example, crackers, we would also want to add in some peanut butter for a little bit of protein, some healthy fats, so that our blood sugar won't go up as quickly. When we give our bodies more time to utilize that glucose, that helps regulate our blood glucose levels more easily. So what we would like our meals to look like, the things that we want to make sure that we're getting, especially at breakfast, we want to make sure that we're getting protein with each meal. As I said, protein is important because it does help slow digestion enough that we can help control our blood sugar. So protein with each meal is important. Breakfast is always a little trickier to get protein in. So I generally recommend starting our day with some eggs or some Greek yogurt or something like that so that we can add in protein at breakfast. Because breakfasts, as we all know, are generally pretty carb heavy with toast and cereal and pancakes and waffles. And so it is important that we make sure we're also getting protein in with breakfast as well as every other meal. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're getting is fiber. So as I said, our non-starchy vegetables, so anything other than potatoes, peas, or corn. For these purposes in particular, we put potatoes, peas, and corn in the carbohydrate group because they are higher in carbohydrates and they do not have as much fiber that we can utilize. So the number of carb servings that we can have per meal does vary from person to person, depending on the severity of insulin resistance or lack of insulin, and also any medications, any insulin that they may be taking, or metformin, or things like that. So everyone will get a different number of carb servings per meal, but really we just want to make sure that with each meal we are also getting fiber in the form of non-starchy vegetables and fruit, and also protein. And that can be in any form as well. The other thing we do want to make sure that we are getting enough of is fluid. Water in particular, especially 0-calorie beverages at least, is very important also in helping control blood sugar, and also just helping us in general staying hydrated and making sure that everything is functioning the way that it should. Generally, people have a protocol put in place by their endocrinologist on exactly what to do if their blood sugar does go high or low. But some general rules of thumb are if your blood sugar is below 70, which would be hypoglycemic, what we usually recommend is the 15-15 rule. So we would recommend eating 15 grams or 1 carb serving of carbohydrates, waiting 15 minutes, and then check blood sugar again. And if blood sugar is still below 70, just repeat the 15-15 rule. If blood sugar is high or hyperglycemic, usually that would be considered over 300. The recommendation is to get some exercise, walk around the house, walk up and down the street, whatever it is that you can do, and also drink lots of water, because that will help your body utilize that glucose that is in the bloodstream more quickly. So every individual does have their specific protocols to help manage their diabetes. These are just some tips that can be used to help prevent hyper and hypoglycemic episodes using diet. Again, I'm Virginia with the nutrition specialist of Northeastern Oklahoma. Feel free to follow us on social media, check out our website. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us.